Welcome to Real Life Mentoring, where we explore real life issues to help you make an authentic difference in the world.
Hi, it's Chris and Christina with Fahrenheit Real Life Mentoring. Well, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is part 3 of a 3-part series going over a tool called My Life, My Story. Chris, today we're going to jump right into, last week we talked about the past portion of the tool.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the present and the future. So let's just take it away. There's a lot of information here, and you're not going to want to miss what this is about.
Right. In a nutshell,
Yeah.
We want to help someone as a mentor assess the past, balance the present, understand it, and prepare for the future.
Right.
That simply said may sound a bit sterile at first. You want to get to know someone's personal story. When you do that, you really get to know them. And as we said last week, you do not know someone at a deep level without knowing some of their past as
Right.
well.
Exactly. Good. So last week we kind of did a role play. Not kind of, we did. We did a role play. We interjected a lot of just common sense, practical things that'll help you as the mentor. Today, we're going to jump right into the portion of when you're talking to someone's past, then obviously you're going to talk about their present. And so there's two sides to a person's present. We have our challenges, those things that may be difficult for us, while we also talk about encouragements, things that are going good. So jump right in there, Chris.
Okay. Well, with that said, let me tie into that as well. So currently, this is my life, all right? These are my relationships. This is my job, what I'm doing, where I'm living, okay? My present has been impacted, has been connected deeply to my past. And hopefully, the negative aspects that have tried to pull me back have been dealt with.
Sure.
But maybe not yet. It's a process.
Right.
But in the present day, so we say on the right side, we will say things. So what encourages you, strengthens you, and challenges you?
Okay, just for clarification, he's saying the right side, like we have a workbook.
I'm
a
sorry,
book,
yes,
yeah.
on the right side.
Right, on the right side of that
I've got to remember that.
Yeah.
So imagine you've got a blank piece of paper.
Sure.
And you have the word past at the bottom, present in the middle, and at the top, future.
Right.
So let's look at the present. On that blank piece of paper, now you've got these 3 words, the word present.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. So on the right side of that word present, I want you to tell me some things. I'm your mentor, and
Okay.
I'm getting to know you better
This is the role plays section.
already. So, Christina, what would be some things currently in your life that encourage you, strengthen you, and challenge you? And I say challenge for your benefit. Some people see challenge as a negative, but I mean it
Sure.
in a positive way. What are things that encourage you, benefit you, and strengthen you today?
Okay. In the role playing phase of this,
Yes.
for somebody like me, I really need a little bit more detail
Very good.
because that's very broad.
Yeah, it's vague.
Something that really brings me encouragement is my morning cup of coffee. Are you looking for those? So break down those questions because
Okay.
that's really
That's really
general.
important, though. Okay, let's put that down. If you're
Yeah.
writing on the list, I'd say Christina's morning cup of coffee really encourages her. By the way, it encourages me. I don't think it encourages me as much as it does you, but that's beside the point. So
Right.
you're right. Someone may say, "I'm really encouraged by my marriage today."
Yeah.
We just got back from a retreat, and we spent a lot of time together, one-on-one. It could be something. My children,
Yeah.
at their ages, they really bless me. They really encourage me.
So those are great to give examples,
Right.
but if you're asking somebody who maybe is a little bit more of a processor like me, I'm like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" So formulate the questions are, what are some things? Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
So now that we understand each other a little bit
Yeah.
better, but for the listeners to understand as well, that's really important.
Yeah.
What would be something that really encourages you today, Christina, besides the coffee?
Yeah, I'm really encouraged by my children, my adult children, just where they are at this point in their lives, at the choices that they've made to get them to where they're at, and how they view maybe their life. Yeah,
Okay.
that's one thing.
What's something which strengthens you?
Something that strengthens me, obviously, because again we're operating from a total Christian worldview, but
A biblical perspective.
a biblical perspective.
Right.
But first and foremost, it's always my relationship with God. It strengthens me, especially now. I'm kind of in a crossroads season of my life, and man, I'm clinging hard to my relationship with God. just like I need my cup of coffee in the morning and I need air to breathe, man, I need to hear him and seek his direction. And then he does that through people like you.
Okay.
Oh, my husband. I'm strengthened. I'm encouraged by the choices you make to walk through me. Or walk through me. You're invisible. To walk with me
Okay.
in this season of life. Yeah.
All right. So, from what you've said, if I gave it a generic term, you would say you have significant relationships that really encourage and strengthen you.
Yeah.
God, children, marriage, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump on the other side. So on the left side of that word, the present, we're going to list things like, you could write a heading of it, things that discourage you, frustrate you, battle you, and maybe even defeat you. This is where it can get heavy, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, you're wanting to know their whole story. If someone says, do you really want to know? Yeah, you need
Yeah.
to. You want to know.
Right.
It's part of the story.
Sure. So my answer to that question right now, in the present, my health, I'm 53. This stunning creature you see before me, there's just some health challenges that are really discouraging.
Okay.
Yeah. Things that I can't put my finger on, and one day I'm feeling great, and the next day I'm like, ugh.
Okay.
Yeah. Which then obviously affects my mental, being super excited about tasks before me. If my physical is challenged, then that's a real challenge.
You alluded to this, or you didn't allude earlier. You actually put it out there, Chris. Instead of just asking that, what seemed like a generic question,
Right.
What encourages you?
Yeah.
I should have done this. Again, I continue to learn and be reminded, depending on the person I'm with. Christina, as we talk about things that encourage you, strengthen you, motivate you, things that discourage you, would be something like, hey, be thinking about categories maybe. Relationships, career, health. Make sense?
Right. The 6 areas that we refer to.
Oh, great point. Okay,
Yeah.
so the 6 areas where she's mentioning, we're spiritual, we're physical, mental, emotional, relational, professional, or educational, if we're working on our education.
In fact, let's just rewrite this whole tool right now. But
Right.
those would be the great questions to say, what are some areas that are really encouraging you
In these
in
areas.
these 6 areas?
That's excellent. Do you guys see
Choose
what's
one,
happening
choose
right
one.
now? We're not making this up.
Yeah.
That's how you become.
You can bank this up.
Do what? You can't make this up. But I find as a mentor, some aspects are very planned and organized and detailed. And other times it's like, I've never thought about that. Someone will say something, my wife or a mentee, or I'll read something and I go, that should be a part of this.
Sure.
It's always developing the toolbox.
So when you ask me the difficulty, my brain went to
Okay.
the physical, because that's the thing. But there may be other things in those 5 areas. And that's where, as a mentor, you can ask, okay, you named this physical. Well, how does that affect you emotionally? Because the 6 areas are all related.
It's all connected. So
Yeah.
it's interesting as well. Our past, present, and future are all connected, right?
Sure.
But these 6 areas are all
Yeah.
connected as well.
Exactly.
And they're all a part of our story. If I were to ask you, do you believe your past has any spiritual aspect to it? Mm-hmm. Of course it does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know physical because you were born and you're still alive on this earth. But I said, what about mental, emotional?
Mm-hmm.
It's all been a part of your past and mine as well.
Yeah.
And it's where we are today and what we want to do with our future.
Okay, so Chris, let's go back to the tool. You've asked me, we're in the present. You've asked me some difficulties or challenges, and now we've just added an amendment to that
Okay.
in the 6 areas. You've had me look at some challenges, some difficulties, things that have maybe been a struggle. Then what does the mentor do?
I think it's important to affirm the things that encourages that person, that they get their joy from, their motivation from. Hopefully, they're healthy things. On the left side, where we talk about things that discourage you or defeat you or frustrate you, we need to camp out there for a while.
And what does camping out look like as a mentor
we need to take
toward a mentee?
one of the topics. And so, for instance, you said you're physical. Okay, it's frustrating. It's exhausting.
That plays into the mental.
Plays into the mental. So, as a mentor, my brain works this way. All right, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But I love, if you were interviewing me, you would know part of things, something I enjoy doing. I like the idea of fitness and nutrition. I love learning new things all the time. Natural means, usually,
Sure.
on improving the body, keeping it healthy and strong, because we all age. It's just how it is. My brain would do this as a mentor. Okay, Christina, are you currently seeing a doctor? Now, this may sound strange to someone going, why would my mentor ask me about my physical health? First of all, you brought it up.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, at some point, I'm going to ask you,
Sure.
how's your physical health? Because it's a part of who you are.
Right.
And your physical health impacts the rest of who you are,
Sure.
right? The other areas.
Yeah.
So my brain would do this. Christine, do you have a doctor? Well, yeah, I do. Well, what's going on? Nothing. He just gives me pills.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully not, but maybe so.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about blah, blah, blah? Hey, I've got a good friend. His name's Michael. He's a scientist. He is. He has a respect for medicine, but he also has a respect for holistic means.
Right.
Would you be willing to have a conversation with him if I set it up?
Now, the reason Chris is talking about those things is because at Fahrenheit, there's a reason we say real life mentoring. Because a person is not just one dimensional. There's so many aspects. And so as a mentor, just being in tune to, if the biggest challenge, like I mentioned, is the physical, then ask some questions. It's not a checklist. You're not giving them a checklist to follow, but give them suggestions. Use your own wheelhouse, your own experience, to give them suggestions of maybe a course of action. Or maybe the course of action is, I don't have any idea, but let's pray together about that.
And let's see what's out there together.
exactly.
So again, let's go back to the foundation of this tool, the real reason for it. To care about another person, that you would hear their story, right? And know about their life.
Yes.
So you could actually walk with them. And so to say, hey, would you talk to my friend who's a nutrition expert? You would leave that time together with your mentor and go, she really cares about my health.
Right.
She's going to connect me with this man, because if you're having physical problems right now, where's a lot of your focus?
Yeah, on the physical
On the
problems.
physical. Well, if I help you with that indirectly or
Right.
directly, you're going to go, that man or that woman who's ever mentoring me really cares about me.
Very good. Let's push forward. So that's a possible scenario of you just open up talking about the present. So then what? The person has shared some challenges, struggles, some encouraging things, some things that strengthen them. Then what do you do?
Let's go back to the struggles, not the challenges, the struggles, the things that defeat us and frustrate us, maybe depress us. There could be something connected from the past. And I'll share a personal example. All right. So when I'm going over my own tool, doing it for myself, by the way, no one's ever done this with me.
I'm doing it tonight.
Well, you are doing it tonight. No, well, we're seeing a biblical counselor right now. He and his wife.
Yeah.
Actually, he did.
Isn't that encouraging? We're leading a podcast and we're seeing a counselor.
No, because we know when we need help. We know when we need
Exactly.
support.
Yeah.
And so we are healthier that we can give it away.
Yeah.
So there's no shame in that.
Yeah, that's a free advertisement
That's
right
right.
there.
But
Seek out a biblical counselor.
the biblical counselor that we're seeing, the husband and wife team, he started doing this with me. He was asking me questions about my past, and I began to realize he's doing my life, my story. He maybe hasn't done it at the extent of this yet, but I think he will. Now, where was I on that?
You're sharing a personal illustration about how something from your present can tie into the past.
Yes. Okay. So I'm putting mine together on this piece of paper, and under the side that said things that discourage and defeat me and frustrate me, I wrote on there, fear of loss. Now, that's not something that someone's probably going to share with you
Yeah.
the first time you ask them about their story.
Sure. But we're just going to illustrate the purposes of how this tool can be used. So,
Right.
yeah, it's
It
great.
it could develop in that.
Yeah.
And so I was writing mine down, thought fear of loss, and I felt defeated because I have a relationship with God through Christ, and I will talk to God. You can call it prayer. It's ongoing conversation for me. And I wrote it down. I said, fear of loss. I said, God, I thought I was over that. I thought I was beyond that. And I knew the Spirit of God said, Chris, you are over that for the most part. It used to control you and live with you. So if you had this document in front of you, this tool, I would take a pen and I would draw an arrow from the present where it says fear of loss,
Mm-hmm.
down to the past. That fear of loss was trying to pull me to the past.
Yeah.
Because I lived that way when I was
Right.
younger. I
Mm-hmm.
lived with a fear of loss because we moved a lot as well when I was growing up, but it was always because of dysfunction.
Sure.
Something happened. Alcoholic father, poverty, you name it, it was happening. So I grew up without realizing that I was being covered with the fear of loss. I'm an adult and I'm struggling in areas. I'm going, what's going on? And one day God revealed to me, you're battling a fear of loss. It's time for that to be done.
Right.
So I prayed and I asked God, take that from me. But this still happens though. I still get battled with it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that caused me shame initially because I thought, well, God, I thought I was finished with that. He says, you are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that the enemy uses to battle you.
Right.
But it doesn't control you and it doesn't live with you anymore. I share that story. I would not have understood that, I don't believe, had I not looked at my past
Right.
and where I am today.
That's a good point, that when you're going through this tool, something that can be affecting somebody in their present, like Chris, a fear of loss, can actually pull them back down into the past. And then what happens is you're not living in the present, and you certainly can't see a hope for your future. Right.
Right.
Let's share a great illustration about a couple that we know. We won't mention names because we didn't ask them permission. She was going through cancer.
Right. So we're going to talk about, we need to jump into the future, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's touch base on that for a moment.
Yeah.
So as a mentor, you're saying, so Christina, not to be too broad, okay, I could say, what do you want for the future?
Right.
Whoa, what do you mean? That's a lot. Christina, what's something you hope for in your relationships in the future? And you go, well, what do you mean? Okay, what do you hope for in your relationship with your husband and your daughters and your son-in-law now?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Just a growing closeness.
Okay.
As they build their families, whatever God intends for them, whether it's the addition of husbands or children or foster kids or whatever, that I would have permission to sit at the table, so to speak, that I would be able to pour into the extra people that come into our lives and really build them up and pray for them and encourage them and be a source of strength for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting as we age. So you have if you're to ask a 3-year-old, what are your hopes for the future? I want a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah.
That's as far as they would think, probably.
Right.
You ask a 10-year-old, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
A 20-year-old, 30, so on. But as long as we're on this earth, there is a future
Yeah.
before eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always want to respect that. If I'm mentoring a man who's 70 years old,
Yeah.
I don't want to go, what kind of future is he looking at?
Sure.
No, I want to go, what do you hope for the future for
Yeah.
yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever thought about this? This is something you can ask your mentee. Do you have any fears for the future? Or not
Right.
for, when you think about the future, does any kind of fear come your way? If so, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Mm-hmm. Well, probably 20 years ago, a fear of mine would have been that my girl, like I would die. I mean, that was a fear. I might die, and my kids would never get to know me. Well, I could die now.
Or you mean
My
as
kids know
a
me.
young mom?
Right.
Okay.
Now that's not such a fear, but I mean, I think that's a real fear for any young mom, right? So I think that would be a tangible thing that people could identify with.
Okay. All right. So on the future, you're looking at, so what do I hope for? What is God wanting for me? That I would get out of the way and say, well, I'm going to do this.
Sure.
That we would not have that mentality. And what you may be talking with a mentee who has that mentality.
Right.
They think it's all about them. That's maybe all they know.
Sure.
It's all about your life. To get them to see, okay, God has a future for you,
Yeah.
but it's more, so much more than just what's probably in your head right now. So we have a past. It's directly connected to our present. We can't get away from it. It's part of who we are, and it's supposed to be that way. And we have a hope for a future. So you mentioned this couple earlier.
Yeah.
So when I was sitting down at the table with this couple a few years ago, I said, give me your perspective on this tool. And I came away with a jewel, I think, that night.
Yeah.
So I said, tell me about some things about your past. And she said, well, when I was in my 30s, at this point they were in their late 50s, early 60s, I believe, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was a really tough time. And she said, what I found myself doing is living in the past. So present day, she had back
Breast
then
cancer.
cancer. She was living in the past. What my life was like before I had cancer.
The glory days.
The glory
yeah.
days. No stress from that. My health was good. My boys, her boys were young. She had 2 young boys at the time. I didn't have to worry about would they lose their mom. The husband, who's a visionary anyway, was thinking about what life's going to be like once we get through this breast cancer. So he was focused on the future. She was focused on the past. You know what they were missing?
Yeah, the present.
The present.
They're both looking opposite directions. Yeah.
Right? You know how miserable it is to get out of bed in the morning
Yeah.
when you don't want to face the day, the present, because of something going on in your life, and so you tend to live in the past, and your spouse tends to live in the future.
Exactly.
The lack of communication that happens, and it can get ugly. It gets scary. So again, as we wrap up, this tool, My Life, My Story, it's getting to know someone at a heart level, giving someone the privilege of telling their whole story to you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because
Yeah.
it's all connected. And
Right.
so, yeah.
And I think it's good to point out this is a tool, just like you've seen us kind of rework and manage some different aspects of the tool, is a tool that we've developed that we hope you would take it and run with it and make it your own. So, as always, thank you for listening, and happy mentoring. Thanks for tuning in. We want to thank you, as always, for listening. If today was helpful, if something that you listened to was helpful, we would really love it if you would go to Apple or Spotify, leave us a review, download, subscribe, and for all things related to podcast, if you'd like to give a financial contribution to help us continuing bringing this sort of broadcasting to you, just go to FahrenheitMentoring.org.